Hey everybody, my name is Duan and welcome to my channel Faithfully Living, where we learn how to study the Bible together. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Acts. But before we get started, do me a favor by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. You can also follow this channel on Instagram at Faithfully Living. Alright, let's get started. Acts is the only biblical book that chronicles the history of the church after Jesus ascended into heaven. It gives an account of how the church grew and spread from Jerusalem to the entire Roman Empire and to the rest of the world. It also gives us an understanding of the transition of Christianity from a Jewish faith to an international faith, knowing that the gospel is the gospel of salvation to all because Jesus is the Lord of all. So let's think about Acts broadly through the categories of context, covenants, culture, and the character of God. So when we look at context, Acts is a narrative of the first 3 decades of the church. The author is going to be Luke, and he's writing to Theophilus, who's a Gentile who wants to learn more about Christianity. The setting is going to be in Jerusalem. Eventually, the gospel is going to spread out more over the countryside of Israel, and it's going to go more to cities like Antioch, to Asia Minor, to Greece, to Rome, to the rest of the Roman Empire. So when we look at Acts, it's going to be talking about how the church developed and spread to the rest of the world. So next is going to be covenants. So when we look at the book of Acts, it's going to be the transition of the old covenant to the new covenant. In the Gospels, we can see that Christ is the fulfillment of the new covenant through his death, burial, and resurrection. So when we come to Acts, we see that the old covenant was given to the Jewish people. And then we see how the new covenant unites the Jew and the Gentile as one church by grace through their faith in the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. So next is going to be culture. So when we look at culture, we are going to be looking at the Jewish culture during the 1st century. But you also want to think about some of the other cultures within this time frame, because we know that Paul was going on his numerous missionary journeys. He was in Greece, he was in Rome, he was in Asia Minor. So we have to keep in mind what were the cultures like of the places that he visited. There are often idol worship, there are often lots of trade and commerce. There are a lot of people moving back and forth to the cities in which he visited. So when you're reading about just during this time period, just keep in mind the different cultures that Paul or the different apostles would have interacted with as they were spreading the gospel. So the last section we're going to be looking at is the character of God. So when we read Acts, we can see the character of God in the 3rd person of the Trinity, which is the Holy Spirit. So before Jesus ascended to heaven, he promised the disciples that he would send a comforter and helper. He was talking about the Holy Spirit. So in Acts, we see the work of the Holy Spirit within the disciples. We see the indwelling of the Holy Spirit during Pentecost, and we see how the Holy Spirit helped the disciples as they spread the gospel to Jerusalem and to the ends of the earth. So I hope this video was helpful for you, as I gave it like a broad overview of the book of Acts as a section of the Bible as a history. Hope this will encourage you to do a deep dive into the book of Acts to get a little bit more detail and understanding its message. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.